Even now, when I look back on the Montana...
The popular movie A River Runs Through It was based on a book by Montana author Norman Maclean. Andrew Kelly from Olds Alberta used genealogy research, including family records, internet sites, libraries, and books to uncover the connection his family has with the Montana Macleans.
Well, our family, way back when, came back from Isle of Rum, Scotland, a couple of generations previous to that. And we have tables here that link up our family to the Macleans from the Isle of Cole, Scotland. And we had the same parental grandfather as Norman Maclean, the Reverend John Norman Maclean, Paul Davidson Maclean, and my members of my family, the same parental grandfather 10 generations ago, Neil Og Maclean, that was his name. And anyways, I was doing research on my family, my family's background, and we were told that we were related to the same Macleans and the river runs through it, but nobody knew exactly how the relationship went. And over the years, things got tainted and scattered, and a lot of information, people came and went and people died, so a lot of information wasn't passed on to the younger generation. So I decided to do research of my own to find out exactly how the relationship went with the Macleans and how we're related. So I spent a couple of years researching on the computer off and on exactly how we're related. And I was looking over our family. We went to Nova Scotia in 1829 from Isle of Rum, Scotland. So I was looking, okay, could it be a possibility, a marriage in Scotland, or I'm sorry, Nova Scotia, because it's a common name, Maclean. Well, we weren't hitting anything, and I was writing to the Reverend John Norman Maclean's grandchildren now, since they're all passed away, the people in the movie River Runs Through It, except for the grandchildren. And they sent me their family tree, and we weren't at all making any connections. So by accident I was on the internet and I found a book called 600 Years in the Hebrides, and it had the history of the Maclean family. And lo and behold, in the book was names we recognized in our family book from the Isle of Rum, Scotland. It had a table how they all linked up to each other all the way back to 1400 Isle of Cole, Scotland, who had what children and so forth and so on. So we linked it all up, and we found that 10 generations ago, this is where the connection came from. There was a split between two brothers. One was named Alan Maclean, the other one was named Charles Maclean. In the genealogy I got from the Macleans, my cousin's John Jean Maclean, I got right here is name of Lachlan Maclean right here. So we recognized as soon as we saw the tables that there was a connection. So we wrote back to them. I got this book actually a couple of months ago, and I wrote back to them and saying how the connection was, and they said yes, that sounds just about correct. You know, that how the names all correspond and how we kept in contact with each other, being a clan sort of family. They kept in contact with each other all these generations. Hence the Reverend John Norman Maclean was in Manitoba, southern Manitoba, in a place called Pembina, Manitoba, doing his summer co-op teaching in the summertime in southern Manitoba, and he stayed at one of our family farms. He stayed there for a few years until he completed his MA in University of Manitoba. Then he, while on the circuit, met his wife, which is also another relation to me, is Clara Davidson. She was actually born in Quebec. Her family came over during the homestead days, just like we did, to Manitoba, and her family had farms, and her brothers were doctors and well-to-do people, and her dad was a carpenter. And this is a picture of Norman Maclean and Paul Maclean when they were younger. They were born out in Clarinda, Iowa, back in the early 1900s. I went down to the Maclean family cabin that they picture in the movie. Was a Hollywood version of it, not the real thing, but I went to the real cabin and I talked to my cousin Jean Maclean, and I told her I'm one of the Davidsons as well, but I'm also a cousin of hers, and I was told that they had trouble trying to find out their background as well. They had some ideas. They went to Scotland, they went to Nova Scotia, but they couldn't at all find like the link where I would come from Manitoba, when I was out in Manitoba. And I had to explain to her, well, he was out there, and we know they stayed on one of our farms, and you don't go to that part of Canada in 1889 unless you have family out there. This is just, the West is just being discovered, the New West. And why would you go halfway across the country without staying with family? I think that would make sense. So the more I kept digging into our family history, the more I kept finding out, okay, well, he did stay at our family farms, one of the farms, which is still in the family. And anyways, so I found out that later on that he was under the tutorage in southern Manitoba under a gentleman named Hugh Borthwick, who was a Presbyterian minister, and this is who would be under his tutoring. He was the first reverend at the church in Missoula. When it was being built, they laid the cornerstone. Now, my cousin Norman Maclean, or John Norman Maclean, had 2 children, as they portrayed in the movie River Runs Through It. One of them was Norman Maclean. This is Norman Maclean when he was an older gentleman. He taught at the University of Chicago poetry. He was also World War II. He was doing writing books on the cartography for the aerial photographers during World War II, American bombers and whatnot. And he was also involved with a few other books and maps during the war, my cousin Norman Maclean. Movie A River Runs Through It actually came out from my cousin John Norman Maclean and his sister Jean Burns Maclean, pressing their dad to write a story on his life's background, his biography. So Norman Maclean wrote the movie the book A River Runs Through It, which became a best-selling movie. It was actually one of the best-selling novels for years, and printed by the University of Chicago Press before eventually it was released as a movie, and it won a lot of awards and everything. And this is how we also based, not only from the movie but also from the book. That was a big thing in our family to read the book River Runs Through It, because he was our cousin, and at the time, like, we just knew he was our cousin, but we didn't know how the relationship worked.
We asked Andrew about the movie's accuracy.
Okay, well, the movie was not filmed in Missoula. It was filmed in Boston, Montana. It was filmed in other parts of Montana. It does not at all disclose that the fact that he went to Manitoba and that Clara Maclean was from Manitoba. You would have to really know your family history and do a lot of digging to figure that one out. Also the fact that Paul Maclean was not gunned down in Montana like the movie says. That's also partly because Norman wrote that in the book for some reason. The real story and the real truth is he was actually gunned down in Chicago. Whether it was for gambling debts, or whether it was because of a random act of robbery, or it was because he went to a baseball game with a black lady at the time back in the 1930s. There was so many theories that spun out that there has been no definite answer as to why he was actually gunned down in Chicago. The other thing was the ending part. The Reverend was no longer in the church system, or in that church, I should say, in Missoula when he was preaching. He was by now in Indian reserves on other various places ministering in the Presbyterian church. Norman Maclean festival coming up this summer up in City Lake. I've been actually putting this in the back of my vehicle, and proud to be Norman Maclean's cousin. River Runs Through It, Norman Maclean Festival, July 10th to 13th, 2015. This is a festival that's coming up. It's a writers' festival. My cousin John Norman Maclean, who's the son of Norman Maclean, he'll be there, and he's written many books on the Mangouche Fire, Esperanza Fire. He's written several books, and he's actually having a movie being made about the Esperanza Fire, a fire out in California, a forest fire. They're big in forestry.
If you're at all interested in genealogy and would like to trace your family tree, contact the Olds District Municipal Library, who offer a genealogy help sessions as well as access to books and computers. Olds Community TV, your go-to channel for news and information in Olds, Alberta.